We all feel it, don't we? That relentless tug of war for our attention.
Mm-hmm.
The notifications just constantly pinging, the endless scroll online. It feels like everything, every app, every headline, even people, just wants a piece of your focus.
It really does. It's more than just background noise now.
Yeah, it's like a constant battle. And maybe for our most valuable resource, one we kind of overlook.
That's exactly the idea. And in this deep dive, we're really going to explore that using Daniel Goleman's fantastic book, Focus, as our guide.
Okay.
Our mission, basically, is to unpack what attention even is, why it seems, scarcer these days, how it shapes our lives in fundamental ways.
And how we can actually get better at it.
Exactly. How we can deliberately cultivate it, not just for productivity, but for, a deeper kind of excellence in pretty much everything we do.
Right. Because this isn't just about, staring at a spreadsheet without getting distracted, though that's useful too. But it sounds like it goes much deeper, like understanding ourselves, our relationships, even how we deal with big global problems.
Precisely. It's fundamental. And hopefully you'll walk away with some genuinely surprising insights, maybe some practical ideas too, for navigating this crazy information-packed world without feeling totally swamped.
Okay, let's dive in then. Goleman really positions attention as this underappreciated mental asset. He says how we use it profoundly shapes how we navigate life. Why do you think something so basic gets so overlooked?
That's a great point. I think maybe we just take it for granted. But what's really fascinating is how Goleman talks about it like a muscle.
A muscle?
Yeah. It gets stronger with, deliberate practice, and it weakens without it. And he's not just speaking metaphorically. He's talking about neuroplasticity, actual brain changes.
Wow. So you can literally train your brain to focus better.
That's the idea. These attentional workouts can make focused thinking more efficient, less draining. Think about that casino guy Goleman mentions, John.
Oh, yeah, the surveillance expert.
Right. His skill wasn't just luck. Being able to pick out one person among 50, ignoring everything else, that's highly trained attention determining peak performance.
So, okay, if it's a trainable muscle, what does that mean beyond just, work tasks? Goleman links it to self-awareness, reading people's emotions, building relationships, even understanding big systems like the economy.
Yes, it touches everything. How aware are you of your own feelings? How well can you tune into someone else? How clearly do you see the patterns in the world around you? It all comes back to where you direct your attention.
It really sounds like Anne Treisman said, how we deploy our attention determines what we see. Or even Yoda, right? Your focus determines your reality.
Exactly. It's that fundamental.
And yet, here's the worrying part Goleman raises. We're at a sort of dangerous crossroads with this. We see the signs everywhere, don't we? The parent on the ferry glued to their iPad, totally missing what their kid is doing right next to them. Or friends in a van just lit up by their phone screens, not talking.
Yeah, those aren't just odd moments anymore. It feels like it's becoming, the norm.
So what's the real cost of that constant digital pull?
Well, Goleman points to this term pizzled. Have you heard that?
Pizzled? No. What's that?
It's that feeling, that mix of perplexed and angry.
Oh, when someone checks their phone mid-sentence?
Exactly. That feeling. And the impact on kids is particularly concerning. They send way more texts, yeah. But they spend much less time actually talking on the phone, hearing vocal tone, nuance.
Then that matters.
Goleman argues it really does. It affects how those social and emotional circuits develop in the brain. Maybe less connection to people, more sometimes problematic connection to machines.
I remember reading about that teacher. She was saying even her bright students struggle now with classics like Edith Hamilton's mythology, finding the complex sentences just too hard.
Right.
And she kind of linked it to the short, choppy style of texting and competing with things like World of Warcraft, like cognitive endurance is shrinking.
It's a real concern. And you see it in places like Taiwan and Korea, where internet addiction is literally a national health crisis. Brain scans of young gamers showing changes similar to alcohol or drug addiction.
Wow.
And it's not just kids, adults too. Mexican TV needing shorter and shorter ad spots. University professors admitting they can't read more than a couple of pages without that urge to check email.
It feels pervasive.
Totally. And Herbert Simon, the Nobel laureate, he saw this coming way back in 1977. He said, basically, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. Seems pretty spot on, doesn't it?
Yeah, eerily so. Okay, so how does this attention thing actually work inside our heads? We hear all the time our attention spans are shrinking, or that we're great multitaskers.
Right, but Goleman clarifies that. Our working memory hasn't actually shrunk. And multitasking, It's mostly just our attention jumping back and forth really, really quickly.
Ah, okay. So it feels like we're doing multiple things, but we're actually just switching focus rapidly.
Pretty much. Those Carnegie Mellon researchers, they called human attention a computer's most precious resource. That tells you something.
So how does Gilman break down the brain's process here?
He talks about two main systems. First, there's the bottom-up system. That's the fast, automatic, kind of intuitive radar.
Okay.
It's always scanning, bringing relevant stuff to your attention instantly, like hearing your name in a noisy room, or that jolt when you see something potentially dangerous, like a snake or even just an angry face. That's your amygdala reacting super fast.
Well, it's our brain's automatic alert system, basically.
Yeah. And it also works quietly in the background on problems. That's why sometimes you get those sudden aha moments, those creative flashes, like Poincaré with his math breakthrough, or Gauss. The answer just pops into their head after they stopped consciously thinking about it.
Right. The subconscious working it out. So
Wow.
if that's bottom up, reacting automatically, what's the other system? The top down.
That's the top-down system. It's slower, more deliberate, sequential. This is where our self-awareness lives, our reflection, our conscious choices.
So this is how we choose where to focus.
Exactly. It lets us steer our attention intentionally, resist impulses. But there's a funny quirk here called the irony error.
The irony error. What's that?
It's when you try really hard not to think about something.
Oh. And then it's all you can think about, like the white bear experiment.
Precisely. Especially when you're stressed or tired or distracted, your top-down control wavers and the thought slips through.
Happens all the time. So this top-down system gives us control, but what happens if it's just constantly overloaded, like maybe it is now?
Well, that's when self-control can really dip. When our cognitive load is too high, we're more likely to revert to automatic behaviors. Mindlessly grabbing that sugary snack, for example.
Ah, because the deliberate control part is too tired to intervene.
You got it. And this top-down attention is the key to getting off autopilot. Like that friend who just automatically said fine when the waiter asked about his meal without even really hearing the question.
Yeah, or those people in the photocopier study who just let someone cut in line because the excuse sounded vaguely plausible even if it made no sense. They weren't really paying attention.
Exactly. Top-down focus is about being present, being intentional.
But what's really interesting is that mind wandering, it's not always the enemy. Right?
No, definitely not. It can actually be really useful. It gives the brain a rest. It helps us process social stuff, incubate creative ideas, even organize memories.
Like Mark Benioff, the Salesforce guy, didn't his big cloud computing ideas come during a month off, just relaxing?
That's the story, yeah. His mind was in that more open, wandering state. And Goleman even points out that people with ADHD who often struggle with focused attention can actually be like 40% more original on creative tasks.
Because their minds spend more time in that open mode.
Seems likely, yeah. It's a different kind of strength.
So, okay, attention is a muscle. We have these two systems. How do we strengthen the useful part, that top-down control?
Right. How do we get better at it? William James, the father of American psychology, he said that the ability to voluntarily bring back a wandering mind, that's the root of judgment, character, and will.
Wow. That's putting it strongly.
It is. And this is where Goleman talks about smart practice. It's way more than just logging, 10,000 hours of doing the same thing over and over.
Okay, so what does smart practice look like? You mentioned Susan Butcher earlier, the sled dog racer.
Yeah, she's a great example. She didn't just push her dogs harder. She integrated rest, meticulous care year-round. Her deliberate practice involved constantly tweaking goals, seeing errors as feedback, not failures, and actively fighting against just going through the motions, that automaticity.
So she was always consciously refining her focus, always learning.
Exactly. Never stopped improving. And think about Thupten Jinpa, the Dalai Lama's translator, translating 15-minute chunks of speech flawlessly after hearing it just once.
That's incredible.
Right? It's not just raw talent. It comes from intense Tibetan monastic training, specifically in memorizing huge texts by chunking information.
Chunking, like breaking it down into smaller pieces.
Sort of, but it's more like recognizing patterns. Think of a chess master. They don't see individual pieces. They see meaningful patterns, strategic chunks. Experts in any field build up this huge library of chunks, maybe around 50,000 of them in their specialty. It lets them process complex info incredibly fast.
And the really good news is we can actually teach these skills.
Absolutely. They've developed games like one called Tenacity at the University of Wisconsin. It's designed specifically to boost selective attention and self-control in kids.
And it works.
Apparently so.
Okay.
They saw brain changes after just 5 sessions, making the kids' attention control look more like adults. And simple things too, like breathing buddies.
Breathing buddy.
Yeah, second graders put a little plush toy on their belly and focus on its rise and fall as they breathe. Simple, but it brings calm and focus, even in classrooms with lots of kids with special needs.
That's amazing. Small interventions, big impact.
Definitely. And methods like the traffic light red, stop, calm down, amber, think about options, green, act thoughtfully. That simple technique helps kids shift from being impulsive to being deliberate.
And does it show up in results?
Big time.
Hmm.
Schools using these socio-emotional learning programs saw an average 11% jump in academic grades. And that long-term Dinan study, tracking kids for decades,
Yeah, I know that one.
it found that self-control learned early on was just as powerful a predictor of adult success, health, wealth, less crime, as things like social class or even IQ.
That's huge. Self-control is that important.
It really is. Singapore's even investing heavily in emotional intelligence in schools, partly because they calculate it will boost the national income and reduce crime. They see the societal payoff.
Okay, so pulling this together, Goleman talks about attention operating on 3 key levels, right? A triple focus needed for navigating our complex world.
That's right. Focus on yourself, focus on others, and focus on the wider systems.
Let's break those down. Focus on self. Self-awareness. What does that entail?
It's about tuning into your inner world, that inner compass, those gut feelings, or what neuroscientists call somatic markers.
Somatic markers.
Yeah, those subtle physical sensations, maybe a tightness in your chest, a sense of ease that guide your decisions, often way faster than your rational mind can process. It's your body's rapid risk-reward assessment.
Ah, okay. Like an artist knowing a piece is right by a feeling before they can explain why.
Exactly. Or George Lucas insisting on creative control for Star Wars, even when it seemed financially risky. That was immense trust in his inner values, likely guided by those strong somatic signals.
Okay, so that's self-focus, then focus on others.
Mm.
That's empathy, right?
Yes, the ability to connect with and understand others. Goleman breaks it down into 3 parts. Cognitive empathy, understanding their perspective. Emotional empathy, feeling what they feel. And empathic concern, actually caring enough to help.
But it's tricky, isn't it? We don't often get clear feedback on how we come across to others.
Very true. That example of surgeons, their tone of voice, how they speak to patients, can predict malpractice suits better than their technical surgical skill. How we present ourselves matters hugely.
And our focus on others can get distorted. You mentioned groupthink.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. Smart people collectively ignoring obvious warning signs because of, implicit social pressure. Think about the lead up to the Iraq invasion or the mortgage crisis. Classic groupthink.
Driven by a lack of attention to dissenting views, maybe?
Partly, yes, and compounded by plain old self-deception. Most drivers think they're better than average, which is statistically impossible.
Ah, true. So what's the antidote?
Goleman stresses transparency, like that cloud company that openly admitted server problems that actually built customer trust, and consciously broadening your social circle, getting outside your echo chamber to hear different perspectives.
That makes sense. And there was that interesting point about wealth.
Yeah, some studies suggest people with fewer resources tend to pay closer attention to others, maybe because they rely on social cooperation more, whereas wealthier individuals who can often just buy solutions might be less attuned to others' needs or cues, a kind of social blindness, perhaps.
Interesting. Okay, so self, others, and the third is systemic focus. Seeing the big picture.
Exactly. Understanding the patterns, the connections, how things influence each other. Like Larry Brilliant, the guy who helped eradicate smallpox. He saw parallels between how diseases spread and ancient trade routes. He said, an epidemic exemplifies system dynamics, seeing the whole system.
And why is that so crucial now?
Because we face these huge, complex, wicked problems like climate change. Our brains evolved to notice immediate threats that rustling in the bushes. We don't have good built-in radar for slow-moving, invisible dangers like greenhouse gases building up over decades.
So we have an illusion of explanatory depth. We think we get it, but we don't really grasp the complexity.
Pretty much. That's why Dr. Larry Brilliant says climate change is so hard to tackle. There's no immediate, blaring danger. Signal our brains easily respond to.
But focusing on the system can reveal solutions, right? Like that hand printer initiative.
Yes. A great example. Small local actions like donating simple insulation covers for water heaters can ripple outwards. The energy savings get reinvested, leading to huge CO2 reductions scaled up. It shows the power of systemic literacy, understanding how leverage points in a system work.
And that's an opportunity for businesses too, presumably, seeing those connections.
A massive opportunity, yes. Understanding the broader system you operate in.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear attention is, well, way more important and multifaceted than we usually think. We've covered focusing inward on ourselves, outward on others, and broadly on the systems around us.
That triple focus, yeah. And as Goleman suggests, whether we're leading a family, a community, a company, we all have influence. The Dalai Lama offers some really powerful questions to guide that influence, to guide our focus. Is this action just for me or for others too? Is it for a few or for the many? Is it just for now or for the future too?
Those are challenging questions. But by actively cultivating this triple focus, by being more intentional about where our attention goes, maybe we can move beyond just reacting and surviving.
Make better choices, yeah. Contribute to a more positive future. It's not easy. The path forward is complex. But Goleman ends on an optimistic note. It is possible with that trained focus.
Definitely food for thought. So maybe the question for you listening is, what's one area of your own life where cultivating this triple focus of self, others, and systems could make the biggest difference right now?